What's up, my friends? Welcome to another episode of That Mom Vibe podcast. We're going to talk about preteen parenting. This is a rough one. It's like unknown territory. There's lots of changes. Puberty is happening a lot sooner nowadays for boys and for girls. We're going to solve a lot of problems in this episode. We're going to talk about the challenges and we're going to talk about how we overcame them, how we're dealing with them, and sort of like solutions to those issues. Between you and I, we have 5 preteens, and we have 2 that are like quickly approaching. So according to our research and our own personal experiences, we got a lot to share. So when we were trying to figure out what episode to do next, we both instantly agreed on this one because this is an important one. You know, we have a lot of preteen girls, and you have a different experience than I had growing up, like with our parents, you know, with our moms telling us and preparing us or not preparing us for this. We will talk about it. I think we've done a good job in preparing our girls as much as possible. And we did that because of our own experiences and the experiences we learned from others. And we want to help other moms, especially if you have not talked about this yet, or if you're approaching the preteen era. This could be really scary for our girls as they start bleeding or they start growing breasts. Like could be really scary if they're not prepared, if their parents don't talk to them about it.
I chose to prepare my daughter in the way that I did because my mother and I did not have these conversations. Mm-hmm. So for me, when puberty started happening, you know, I kind of felt like I was the only one going through this.
Right.
And it honestly, like
scary.
The first time I got my menstruation, I thought it was the end of the world. Okay. I was so depressed. I was like, what in the world is this? And I was like, oh, here, let me get you some meds, you know, but wasn't something that I actually knew was coming.
Why is this happening to me? You know, am I the only one? You know?
Right.
Yeah. And for me, I think my mom talked to me about a little bit, not as much as I would have liked her to be honest with you, but that shaped the way of how I talk to my girls. Like before, I think it was like 7 or 8 years old, we started talking about little things. Age appropriately, of course. But when that time came, you know, they knew and they were like open. They were talking to me about it.
We did a little bit of research about the growth and development of preteens, and according to the National Institute of Child Human Health and
That is a big word.
That is one huge.
But we want to get like real information, so we had to do this research.
Basically, puberty begins for girls between the ages of 8 and 12, and boys start to experience puberty between 9 and 14 years old. You're not really aware of what puberty is. According to betterhealth.gov, it's a complex process of physical and hormonal changes that really leads your child to becoming adult capable of reproduction.
Yeah, that's scary.
Very.
Yeah.
We're talking about our babies here.
Yeah, I know. But age appropriate. We're leading them, we're directing them and guiding them age appropriately. Like we haven't told them everything, but as much as they need to know right now.
So let's talk about it. There's going to be initial changes that your kids go through that are, you know, going to be representative of them going through the process of puberty.
Right.
According to some of the research that we've done, the adolescents will begin to go through a shifting of independence and self-awareness. And I saw this in Gianni. This became a time where she was just like, she wanted to be alone in her room, or her and her sister spent a lot of time together. They're 4 years apart. And then it was like, I just need my own time. She was getting a little bit more snappy, and the hormonal changes were also something that was visible to me. She was very irritable. Everything bothered her. And she would have these weird moments of like emotional outbursts, and you know,
that's like the first sign that something's going on. The changes are starting to occur.
Yeah. So the snappiness, you know, is kind of like when I just started saying, oh, something's not right, you know. But this is around the time that she actually came to me and was like, why am I experiencing this? I always feel like I just want to cry for no reason. I was like, oh, the light bulb went off. Oh, it's time to talk about puberty.
Yeah. Yeah, for me as well. I think I noticed something was going on with my girls when their moods changed. Like, kind of moody. And I'm like, okay, it's starting. And one of my girls started earlier than the others. So that just shows that like it can happen at any time. Like it could start at 8 or it could start at 12, you know, for a girl. So I think my girl started a little bit early, especially one of them. And I started noticing those mood swings. But with mood swings came emotions. They came, you know, a little bit more easily ability. And then with that came behaviors, some different behaviors that I wasn't really used to. A little bit more talking back, a little bit more sighs and scuffs and, just dragging their feet a little bit. I'm like, ooh, we're getting a little rebellious here.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also started noticing that my girls cared more what others thought. Instead of being a carefree kid outside playing in the dirt, like cared more when they walked out of the house. They wanted to be, around their peers specifically. They wanted to be accepted by their peers. So I felt their style changing a little bit. They started wearing their hair differently. They're more aware of appearances. And it's not to please themselves, it was to please others. So the shift went from just thinking about themselves, to how others perceive them. That's when I noticed the biggest difference with my girls.
And it's funny because we were experiencing this at different times.
Yeah.
Obviously, like for me, I just started experiencing this with Gianni, but she's just recently been exposed to kids outside of the home, being homeschooled. We're not in classrooms. We're not.
It was a little bit delayed for her, that peer aspect. Yeah.
And it was a little bit surprising for me because I'm like, oh, now she's in volleyball. They're playing all types of sports, and when they come home, a lot of things you hear are the things that their friends are talking about. You know?
They're starting to drift from us slightly. They go to their peers more, with questions, not necessarily questions, because I think our girls are still, pretty close with us. But, they go and not just with like, oh, that top looks cute on me. No, I don't like that top. They're going with what their peers think more than what we feel. If I like my girl's hair a certain way and someone else likes it another way, they're kind of shifting towards what their friends would like versus us.
Or even what they see their friends doing. Maybe their friends are not even talking to them about what they like, but they go hang out with their friends and they notice that their friends don't wear, 2 ponytails anymore. Then they're like, I don't want those. Those are weird. And I'm beyond that age now because so-and-so wears her hair out all the time, or she wears this type of lip gloss, or she doesn't wear little kids' clothing as far as certain things. Not that their
jean style is changing, right? And it's not only appearance, it's also just like social influences as well.
Right.
They're more inclined to do things that their peers do, not just wear or say.
Which is normal.
Which is hard. But that's why that positive peer circle is so important. We want them hanging out with the right people because 99% of the influences come from their peers.
Right.
It's really important that we encourage those good relationships, and they have so much influence on our babies.
Right. So we have to make the decision a lot of times of what we will allow in their peer circles or will not, right? Like if my daughter is 12 years old, which she is, I don't want you having influences of 17, 18-year-old girls.
Right.
It's like crop tops and little hot shorts.
Yeah.
No. So as a mom, we have to be aware of the peers that are around and really decide what we want our kids to be exposed to at what stage.
And we can ask them too, do you think that they're appropriate? Let them kind of make those decisions because they're in that era where they want to make their own decisions as well.
Or even ask, do you think that that's appropriate for you as a 12-year-old?
How are others going to perceive you when you're wearing that certain style or acting that certain way?
Right. And especially because just because your friends can do something, and my daughter and I go through this all the time, doesn't mean that you can.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because
we all have our different rules and expectations,
and values and expectations, things that we find appropriate versus inappropriate. So yes, you can have the liberties of hanging out with your friends, but understand
but have your own mind,
right? Not everything your friends can do, you can do.
Right.
So don't come home and ask because I'm going to say
no. Let's talk about some challenges and some solutions to those challenges. I want you guys to go away with some tools in your pouch to pull out when you encounter these type of situations. These are some things that we did research that have proven to work, and then also some of our own experiences as well. Mood swings are something that we have experienced, and also emotions. Like the emotions are much more intense. So when you see your child going through the mood swings or having those emotional moments, it's really important to be patient in that moment. Be empathetic and just listen. Listen to them. They may have a lot coming at you at one time, but being patient and listening and just making sure that they know you are there for them and that open line of communication is open so they can express those feelings is going to be a lot easier for them to deal with emotionally.
That the emotions that they're going through, they're not just unique to them, that all kids around this age experience them. And we've experienced them, so we understand what you're going through.
Empathize with them. Let them know they're not the only one.
Right.
I think that is the number one thing for, our relationship during this time and the communication is empathizing with them. Like, we know what you're going through. Like, I will help you through it. I will be here no matter what happens. We are going to test our boundaries. It's going to be quite difficult sometimes, especially with the roller coaster of emotions they go through during this time. But as long as we keep the communication open and we show respect and model good behavior, I think that will definitely help the situation. But we need to show respect for them, but they need to show respect for us as well.
As we kind of get into this phase of independence, they're going to want a little more leeway, a little bit more room on that rope. And they're going to want a little bit more independence, which is okay. But I think that it's important to lay the boundaries. Lay the boundaries, and the boundaries are actually laid early on, right?
Right.
Because they know, you might feel a little bit irritable now, but snapping your neck and sighing and all that.
Rules still apply.
Right. That's not going to go. You still have to be respectful and accountable for your behaviors, and there still will be consequences for behaviors that arise, maybe because they're not yet capable of channeling that emotion correctly, right? So just making sure that we lay that foundation of boundaries, right? I understand what you're going through. You can discuss these things with me. You can have a time where you're just totally frustrated, but bringing it to me in a respectful manner and the right way will allow me to better help you, right? Yeah. And respect is not an option; it is an obligation, right? So you're obligated to be respectful. But we are in a phase of our lives where I don't think our parents were. As we discussed before, our parents were kind of like, no, because I said so. But I think in this era, we're kind of like, no, and this is why, and please give me, your input. How do you feel?
Right.
Why do you feel that way? Now, while I understand that you feel that way, this is still the answer.
Right.
This is still what we're going with, right? But thank you for sharing that with me. And yes, I do take that into consideration.
We're trying to be really patient with them, and we can let them know, like, look, I'm going to be as patient as possible, but, because I know you're going through a lot. There's a lot of emotions. There's a lot of uncertainties and changes, but you still need to be respectful. I'll be respectful to you. You be respectful to me.
Sure.
They start looking at themselves. They start looking at themselves as like unattractive. They start comparing themselves to their peers or what they see on social media. They may have getting a little bit of acne. They may be worrying about their body shape, like little silly things like my forehead's too big. They're thinking about all these things.
Peer pressure is a really big challenge at this age, right? Because as they are, with their peers in their sports or school or, after school programs, whatever it is, they begin to see things that maybe they don't see at home. Maybe their little 12-year-old friend is allowed to wear crop tops, right? And all of a sudden they want to come home and be like, oh, Mom, so-and-so wears crop tops. So-and-so is not my kid.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think the peer pressure is a big one too for them because
testing those boundaries.
Right. They don't really know where they fall in that, right? They want to be able to do everything that they see outside of the home. But how do we, counteract that? I think it's by building their self-esteem and letting them know that you're beautiful regardless, right?
Right. It's really important that we highlight their beauties and their strengths and the certain uniqueness about them that no one else has, right? Be like, well, so-and-so may be tall like a model, but man, your hair is gorgeous or your eyes just sparkle. Be really specific and intentional with the praise and the compliments you give your girls, especially.
Highlight their talents. There's a lot of talents that our kids at this age are going to be scared to show their friends because they might feel
it may not be cool enough.
Right. So Gianni crochets. Right. I mean, amazingly, she can crochet clothing, but it's not something that she was always willing to go and show other people, right? But me telling her, Gianni, that is amazing. Yeah. I would love to wear one of your crochet tops. Crochet your friends. Yes. That she started doing it for their birthdays.
Yes, and they love it. And that really shows her talents in a different, wholesome light and takes the pressure off of other areas as well because the girls appreciate it. And I think that's really cool. I think girls are a little bit more accepting. Well, maybe it's just our group. They're a little more accepting of each other's uniqueness and talents than I remember back in school.
Yeah.
Right?
I wasn't crocheting it.
Because nobody's making fun of Gianni for crocheting.
But I'm sure they would have made fun of me.
Exactly. It's different, right?
So we've discussed some of the changes that adolescents are going to go through during the puberty process and also the challenges that it poses for the parents. And we hope that the solutions that we provided are helpful for you. And
Yeah.
if you have any thoughts or questions, leave them in the comments section.
Yes, because we are going through it. We are all going to be going through it at different paces. A good conversation. I hope it is really helpful for you guys. Thank you so much for watching. We cannot wait to see you in the next one. Don't forget to subscribe and have a happy new year.
Happy New Year.